Hi, Guido Fox here. Welcome by a new spiritual teaching book report. And today I want to talk with you about this book, Philosophy in the Arabic World. Very interesting topic, I think. I did already another book report about Sufism, and that is in line with that, but it is more from a philosophical um, point of view, but also related to the old Arabic world. And we are always thinking about spirituality that exists in the East. It's Easter wisdoms, it is Buddha, it is Thailand, the nice beaches and the palm trees and the nice and wonderful statues of the Buddha. But also you see in the Arabic world and the old philosophers I mentioned later, I will mention later a few philosophers and their ideas. But what you see is also in the Arabic world, there was spirituality. There were mystical guys who were trying to raise up their consciousness levels. So also in that part, and I think all over the world until the North Pole and the South Pole and the Eskimos, whatever, there were always groups or religious groups who were trying to reach, raising up their consciousness levels. What you see in the Persian period and the Islamic empires, there were a lot of crossovers from the Western philosophers Aristotle, Plato, and also Socrates to the Islamic world. So you see Averroes, Avicenna, Al-Kindi make the work of Aristotle, of Plato in the Arabic language. So they translate and to transfer the knowledge from Western philosophers into the Arabic world. So the Hellenic philosophy, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, were transferred to Islamic empires. And that's also not so strange because there were a lot of trade between Greece and Turkey and the Ottoman Empire and farther away in the Middle East. And through trade, people come to knowledge from each other. So it is, I think, important in this wonderful world to trade, because if you can trade to different countries, you know each other more and more crossovers can exist. So that is what you saw in the past. So what you here specific saw is the crossovers from the Byzantine Empire, the Byzantijnse Rijk, to the Islamic empires. So there see you the most crossovers. And what you see also is that Baghdad in Iraq was one of the most modern cities in the past, but the most largest cities in that time period. So you see also that large cities was not something from the Western world, but also in the Arabic world you had a lot of large cities, and there were also a very high grade of knowledge and also religious, spiritual knowledge and philosophy knowledge. So that's what you see in the past. There are a lot of crossovers, and there's also this book about. And where I am interesting is what this kind of philosophers say about the mystical things, about Sufism within Islam, and also about inner revelation, right? So what is conscious level raising and how they thought about religion. And you see a lot of philosophers are working alone. And when you work alone, you can raise easily higher in your spiritual consciousness levels because you will not be dragged down by the crowd. So there must be on a certain point by philosophers too to step out the mind and go beyond the mind. So that's what you see, that philosophers always searching also for higher goals, higher spirit, higher evolutionary spirits. So that's the struggle, I think, of a lot of philosophers. Is there something higher than yourself? And that's also the Western philosopher Kierkegaard. I come later with a book report about Kierkegaard and Zen, and he was also higher spiritual, evolved. And he was also dealing with what is God and what means God and that kind of stuff. So you see that also philosophers stepping out the fragmented mind issues, the thinking about society and what kind of systems we have, but that they also going slowly and slowly more into spirituality. And the same you saw and see with the Arabic philosophers, that they also going more and more into personal development, of course. Enlightenment and spiritual awakening is nothing more than the highest grade of spiritual personal development. So personal development is not something new, right? Personal development, no, it's personal development is like the old ages. It's nothing new under the rising sun. Let's start with Al-Kindi. He talks about oneness, that God is oneness and wholeness. Al-Kindi say oneness, that is in Arabic Tawhid. He say God is oneness and is the creator. And if you concentrate on God, He will create for you and you will be one, on page 45. So here you see that Al-Kindi, prophet, philosopher, what you see also in the Arabic world, that you see a lot of philosophers were prophet or prophets were philosophers. So you see a lot of kind of combination. I will talk later about that difficult combination, prophet, philosopher. So Al-Kindi was all talking about oneness. And oneness we see also in the Buddha world, in the Asian spirituality, that all energy is one. We are all together. Energy is going through doors and walls. We are one energetic system. But also oneness means that you are connected with your inner line. So your inner chakra line, are you connected with your chakras, with your ecstaticness inside, yes or no? Or I know that it's very difficult to come there on that higher stages of consciousness, but if you are there, you are connected with God. You're one with yourself. You are not separated anymore with yourself. You don't have the feeling anymore of separation. And that is where Al-Kindi was talking about. We feel separated. And if we are feeling separated from ourselves, that's create depressions. That's create feelings of lust. So we have to make ourselves whole and one. And the only solution there is meditation, meditation, and meditation. Then we can find the source within. So the only solution of dissolution, separation, feeling that you're not yourself, that you are away from yourself, the only solution there is deep and deep meditation to heal yourself fully. That is oneness, and that is concentrate on God, concentrate on godliness. That makes you one, and that makes you Tawhid. That is what I think Al-Kindi is mentioning here on page 45, that we all can become one. Al-Razi, another philosopher, mentioned the relativity of time and space. And when you are connected with God, when you're connected with godliness, when you're connected with the higher source, with the higher lights in yourself, the time flies. How more connection, how more spiritual awakening, how more the time flies. How more ecstatic, how more the time flies, and the time is relative. How less important is the space where you are. Your mood, your happiness is not anymore dependable on the space where you are. Of course, you become more sensitive. Of course, you become more vulnerable. But you'll always be connected with your inner source, with your inner line. So you bring that to all kinds of spaces in this world. So your happiness, and it is very important, your happiness is not anymore dependable on the place you are. If you are connected with the higher source. So I think that Al-Razi was saying this about spirituality and the relativity about time and space. And of course, if you are connected with the ecstaticness, feelings in yourself, the environment will react on you. The space and the people become calm and chill because you are there. That is creation, right? That is God the Creator You create your world. You can influence your environment through connection with yourself. And then less and less in which space you are. If you are in the supermarket, or you are in the restaurant, or you are in a gym, it doesn't matter anymore. Bad emotions from other people doesn't influence you anymore. Because you are there and you are extremely happy. Ecstatic happy, like a spiritual drunkard. You're spiritual drunk because of the spiritual divine. A lot of people are also saying to mystical guys, you're drunk, you're just drunk. No, no, no. We are not drunk. We are connected with divine. We are connected with spiritual lights. That makes you drunk. That makes you drunk without any glass of alcoholic stuff. No drugs, no alcohol. You don't need it anymore. You don't want it anymore. If you are connected with your soul. Al-Farabi, other philosopher from the Arabic world. God is pure mind. God is pure mind. That is interesting, right? We always talk about out of the mind, not thinking anymore. And here a guy is saying God is pure mind. What is going on here? On page 66 and 68. God is pure mind and the first cause of motion for the entire universe. Aristoteles posits not just the highest separated intellect, but one intellect for each of the simple motions of the heavenly bodies. So, God can be a higher separate intellect, an active intellect, what is going through the heavenly bodies. So God is mind-spirit connection. With your higher intellect, with your active intellect. That is God. And that is your pure mind. That is your mind, what you didn't know that you have that mind, that part of your mind. That's quite interesting, right? In the spiritual enlightenment process. So Al-Farabi mentions also here Aristoteles. And he calls it the higher separate intellect, the active intellect. And he say on page 70, that's also the ruling factory. The ruling factory is the active intellect is going to the heart. The active highest intellect, pure mind is going to the heart region. He calls it also the acquired intellect. The acquired intellect. You have to find the acquired intellect. And then you are a prophet, philosopher, ruler. You are a king. You are an ecstatic king. You are a ruler over yourself. You can control yourself fully. And those people who are prophet, philosopher, ruler has to rule the country. So therefore you see in Arabic world not very interesting in democratic changes. Because the prophet, philosopher, ruler, the religion leader is the highest and should be also the leader or one of the biggest leader of a country. Those the one who can rule over themselves can rule over others. So no democracy, no mobocracy. Only those who studied so much and meditate so much can rule over a country. That's what Al-Farabi here was saying in this text about society hierarchy. Socrates, the first important philosopher, on page 93, was a highly ecstatic guy, and he was living in the wilderness, and that is interesting. He was living highly ascetic. He lived out in the wilderness in a large vineyard, eating nothing but grass. Socrates was eating grass? You don't hear that, right? And he was fearlessly, without fear, speaking his mind to the hypocrites of his society. Yes, and there the poison come, right? There you become crucifixion. Crucifixion is coming if you're going into spirituality. Jesus, Socrates were poisoned. Mansur was killed. And mystical guy. It's a very dangerous path, the spiritual path, right? It's not very safe. But the big lesson here is that Socrates was a simple, very simple person and lived a simple life. And in his simplicity, in his simple way of living, he was enormous joyful. And he was enormous happy in his simple wilderness, natural life. He was living like an animal and a spiritual guy in one. How more spiritual, how more animal. Animalistic. How more spiritual, how less false strings from civilization can reach you. How more spiritual, how less civilization.